Hello out there, my friends. It is I, Hondo Onaka. Now you know what to do. You must tune in to my favorite podcast, the Fiveish Fangirls. Otherwise, there could be consequences.
Hello everyone, Rachel here with, I guess this is going to be a little extra squee. This was going to be this week's actual episode, and actually Holly and I sat down at our usual time and proceeded to do a full-on Fangirls episode, and then realized there was a major technical issue. So that threw that right out the window. And unfortunately, Holly didn't have the time to necessarily sit down and try it again, so I'm making the executive decision that instead of a regular Fangirls episode this week, y'all are just going to get a little extra squee with just me and maybe an appearance from one of my brother's cats that I'm currently watching. You may hear knocking over stuff. That will probably be Arrow, the tortie with the tortitude. So this is going to be my little extra squee talking about Indy PopCon, which was just this past last weekend in April here in Indianapolis. This is calendar-wise, this is the 10-year anniversary of the very first PopCon, but it is the 11th Indianapolis PopCon. Unless you don't count the one that was online that year. In that case, this is the 10th, but it's still, it was still labeled as Indy PopCon, even though it was all online. So I think it still counts. Plus, there's been Fort Wayne and Louisville once so far. So that makes 13 PopCon events, and I've been to every single one. So I like to have that little feather in my cap, because outside of the people that work for PopCon, like Carl, I don't know, probably a handful of fans that have been to every single PopCon event so far. So Indy PopCon always, my go-to con. This year it was the same weekend as C2E2 up in Chicago. I did have some friends that went to C2E2 instead. I did run into some friends though that I thought would have gone to C2E2, and they were like, no, we're going to support Indy PopCon. I'm like, hey, sweet. I like the sound of that. And then some friends that I know are regular vendors, that they managed to have enough people to vend at both. So that's pretty cool. So that both events got the support. So yay. When I talked to Holly, when we did my recap with Holly, I kind of went day to day today. I'm not sure if I necessarily want to do that again. I may just touch on some of the highlights for the most part, and then I've got a lot of photos and video that needs to be posted. The photos should go up on our Facebook page. Video eventually will go into a video on our YouTube channel. You know how these things work. If you're not new to this rodeo, I'll try to put in the show notes as many relevant people, places, things as possible, so you can check those out. Obviously this year I was taking things a bit more laid back. One, I needed to be watching my wallet. I'm still looking for a job, so gotta watch my pennies. And also I hit the concert really hard last year with tabling and panels and stuff, so it's like I'm just gonna dial things back just a little to make things a bit more chill. Thankfully we had the live podcasting stage ran and beautifully ran and operated and coordinated by Brandon Peters of the Brandon Peters Show. He has started out kind of as a volunteer with that and has now become like his official thing. He is the king of all things podcasting at PopCon. And he does a fabulous job of getting a good variety of podcasts scheduled on the stage. He works on does the scheduling himself. Make sure that the equipment is running and cooperating, and keeps track of the equipment and all that fun stuff. So word up to Brandon for being the king of all things podcasting at PopCon. There were a few shows that I read, folks I recognized, like the Normies, that are becoming a regular staple of PopCon. KJ with the KJ Today Show and KJ's crew, and all that fun stuff, including her little entourage of Jonah and Katie and Patches, and how KJ managed to do everything that she did over the weekend, because she also moderated a number of the big fan panels for the main stage, the big main stage. I don't know how she does it. Goals is one thing, I'd love to be in her shoes at some point. Definitely life goals, career goals, living the very nerdy life. Getting there. We're getting there, slowly but surely. Word up to KJ, who, as I'm recording this, there is no KJ Today Show this week because she literally has no voice because of everything. Bless her. It's a lot of talking, a lot of talking, even if she didn't do any live podcasting, just being that moderator. Although John Barrowman did give her a break. I was fortunate that I was able to get into John's panel this time around. Unlike in Cincinnati in 2016, where people were lined up to get into his panel like ages before the panel was scheduled. There was no chance that we were going to get in, or at the very least get in and have a decent seat. This time, not a problem. If you're familiar with the Indianapolis Convention Center, the 500 ballroom is huge, absolutely huge. So there was no issues with fitting everybody. And I got there early enough that I've got a pretty good seat. But John, pretty much. When John Barrowman is in the room, John Barrowman kind of controls the room. If it's appropriate. He's not like a diva or anything. He is a little bit, but not in like an asshole kind of way. So when he comes out for his panel, it's not a sit down with the moderator. Have the moderator start the conversation going, and then eventually throw it to the audience for question and answer. No, John comes out and John controls the entire thing. And KJ just was his gopher with the microphone going from one end of the ballroom of the other, to hand the microphone to fans so that they could ask questions. And of course, most of the questions were Doctor Who / Torchwood related. There were a few Arrow questions, or a few like Broadway performing type questions, because John has cut his teeth on Broadway in musicals. The man is a triple threat, singing, dancing, and acting, and he's got the body to prove it. He's got some very nice legs and a very nice ass. That is a dancer's body if I've ever seen one. And as someone that used to be a dancer, I would know. I do not have that body. I do not have that body anymore. Because I don't do that stuff anymore. But John still does. In fact, he's getting ready to go on tour to do his kind of one-man show where he tells stories and does, perform some of his favorites, Broadway songs and, standards and stuff like that. So he actually ended up doing like a mini version of that show that Saturday night at a local bar in Indy, but I was not able to go. One, because it would have kept me downtown a little later than I would care to. And two, again, watching my pennies, watching the budget. So I just could not, as much as I had the FOMO, I just could not justify spending the money. So I'm just going to have to catch John when he's on tour instead. And then I'll get like the full John Barrowman on stage performance. But he told sorts of stories about traveling and filming things, and I'm not going to try to attempt to retell some of the stories because he just does it so much better. But he was an absolute laugh riot, and he is just so unapologetically himself. And if you know anything about me, the last few years, kind of my personal mantra, instead of, New Year's resolutions or whatever, I've kind of taken on my own personal mantra to be, as fearlessly authentic as possible. And John definitely embodies that. He is very comfortable in his own skin. He knows who he is. He knows what he believes in. He knows what he likes, doesn't like. And if you don't like what he has to say, there's the exit. See yourself out. Because haters have no space in the John Barrowman bubble, which I totally get. So he was absolutely fabulous. I ended up getting a photo with him, professional photo with him, because the first time that I ever saw him in Cincinnati, I only had time between the standing in line for a very long time for a photo with Stan Lee and then waiting in line to get John's autograph. There were just not enough hours in the one day that we were there for me to do a professional photo with John. So we just did selfie, which if you guys are on, follow me on social media, you've seen that. And then when he was at GalaxyCon Columbus a couple years ago, because he was there the same year Jodie Whittaker was there, I paid for a professional photo. But at the time, it was just John Barrowman photo op, and that's what I paid for. And then as we got closer to the actual event, they added the John Barrowman and cosplay photo op, and I was like, damn it! Because John always does a photo op of him in just regular clothes, which is what we ended up doing, which was fine. He was just in jeans and a hoodie, and I was in my Time Buster cosplay, so at least one of us was, dressed up in costume. But I was like, dagnabbit, this time around, I want to do John in some sort of costume, whatever it is he decides to wear. Usually it's whatever he ends up wearing for his panel. That was the case for this, so if you've seen the photo, if you've seen in it, that's also what he was wearing for the panel. Very sparkly. So we got that photo together. So we're absolutely fabulous in that. So that was a lot of fun. So it was nice to get my picture with John in him and, looking absolutely fabulous. And I got lots of compliments throughout the day of my TARDIS sweater that I was wearing. I thrifted that. I found it. I was out thrifting, and I was about to call it a day, and it was just sitting on a random rack that was not the same. This wasn't like the women's section or anything. It was just somebody flung it over a random rack covering some stuff, and I was like, I think that's a TARDIS. So I picked it up, and I'm like, it is. It's a Doctor Who sweater. And I was like, I think I can make that work. That size. I'm taking this, please and thank you. So I have a couple of Doctor Who sweaters actually that are thrifted. So Don't sleep on thrifting when it comes to geeky stuff for your wardrobe, kids. So yeah, I got several compliments on my Doctor Who sweater, which was fun, and it was nice to have because it was in the vendor hall. It was fairly warm. In the panel rooms, it was cold. So that was nice to have that layer. So yeah, John's panel, photo of John, that was pretty awesome. One of the things that I tried to do this time around, because I was keeping things more laid back, not being, manning a booth or anything like that, is because PopCon in their, 10 years, it's always evolving. The event is always evolving. And, they've tried some things, and, haven't done them again. Not that they weren't successful, but for, maybe they just can't quite fit it into the schedule, or because they want to try something else. So, they've tried different things throughout the years, and some have stuck, some have not. And, but there were a few things that I had not yet tried. One of which I didn't even know was a thing last year. So I wanted to at least, go in and experience some of these things that I never experienced before. One of those was wrestling, amateur wrestling, which I'm not new to amateur wrestling. I've been to a couple of events, homegrown Indiana events before. That's where actually I made my my first face-to-face connection with Jacob the Carpetbagger, who we've had on the channel. So I've seen him wrestle a couple times. It's, while, spoilers, sorry kids, while most everybody knows that, like, your WWE type wrestling is staged, it's scripted, that doesn't necessarily make it fake, because the athleticism is very much real. These things are very carefully choreographed so that it looks and sounds and feels what the fans expect, but it is also done in a way that, in theory, knock on wood, nobody's going to walk away injured at the end of a match. But that being said, it is a very dangerous sport. I will totally, cop to that. It is a sport. It's very physical. It can be very dangerous. Just someone climbing up on the ropes and jumping and landing on someone. If you land wrong, or you land on the person wrong, stuff can get broken. People get concussions. People have died doing wrestling like this. It is not for the faint of heart. So I totally am in awe of the athleticism and the risks that these, even on the amateur level, these wrestlers, these performers take on a regular basis. That being said, it is so entertaining to with the different personalities and stuff. The match that I ended up watching, at one point there was a guy with longer hair, kind of pulled back in a bun, ponytailish thing, and another guy with shorter hair. And I missed what the guys' names were, because they were already in the middle of a match by the time I got in the room. But the guy with the long hair got the guy with the short hair in a headlock, in a way where, like, the top of his head was pointing outwards. Like, if you were looking at the guy with the long hair face to face, the guy with the short hair, the top of his head would be facing you. So the rest of the guy's body is behind. And then when the ref wasn't looking, the guy with the long hair would start giving the guy in the headlock a noogie. Where you take the knuckles of, you make a fist and you take your knuckles and you rub them really fast on the top of someone's head. So he started giving this guy a noogie, and the guy was like, ah, and then the ref would turn around and the guy would move his hand and be like, what? I got him in a headlock. I'm not doing anything. And then the ref would turn around again and start giving him a noogie then, and then the ref would turn back around and be like, what? I just got him in a headlock. So apparently noogies, are, I don't know if illegal, but at least frowned upon as a wrestling move. So that was quite amusing. I think the guy with the long hair ended up winning the match. So that was fun. I saw some of the other matches, occasionally as I'd walk by the room, going to this, that, and the other thing. And then the other thing that I did not know was a thing last year, and last year I guess was the first time that this was a thing being held at PopCon, was a beard competition. And it's exactly what it says on the tin, kids. You got mostly guys who are in different categories. You've got partials, where it's beard but no mustache. You've got mustaches, and then presumably full beards, where you got a beard and a mustache. And when I got into the room, they were doing partials. And, there was the person would come up, there was a gal that was asking questions, what part, if they were in any of the beard, clubs, because apparently that's a thing. If they were planning on it, going to the, any other events in the future, because apparently they were also advertising that there's another beer competition taking place in the nearest future, I think in Brownsburg or something. I left before they announced any winners. And then after the partials was the mustaches. And again, the same thing, the gals asking questions. But what's funny is in the partials, there was a guy dressed as Fred from the Flintstones, and then presumably his wife, real life wife, presumably, was dressed as Wilma in cosplay, but she'd made herself a mustache out of little, presumably plastic skeleton bones, like the arm bones. Like you expect to see on the characters in the Flintstones. They'd put them in their hair and they use them to hold their clothes together and stuff. She made herself a full-on handlebar mustache out of bone parts. Fake bone parts. And presumably, I don't know if she was going to enter. If there was, I think there maybe was a category for made crafted facial hair. Because they had some on display last year. That's how I ended up finding out about it, because they had a booth, and there was one made out of Twizzlers. And then there was one that was made to look like a fairy garden. So I think maybe there's a category for self-made beards, not human hair. But I think I missed that. Either it hadn't happened yet or I'd already missed it. I don't know. But one of the guys in the mustache competition was the guy that was cosplaying as Ted Lasso, who I'd seen earlier that day and got an Ussie with him. I was hanging out at the podcast stage and I saw him walking by and I was like, Coach Lasso, Coach Lasso, Coach Lasso. And he's looking around and finally he saw me and I'm like, can we get an Ussie? He's like, absolutely. And, we're posing and I got my phone out and the one person was like, you want me to take that for you? I'm like, no, it has to be, I have to take it because otherwise it's not an Ussie. And the person just looked at me like I was crazy and I was like, it's a Ted Lasso thing. If you haven't seen it, it's not going to make sense. But we took an Ussie, which, he totally got because he's Ted Lasso. And he gave me a little green army man, which again, if you've seen Ted Lasso, if you know. The only thing is I wish if I'd gotten a chance to talk to him again, I should have asked him if he got a chance to shoot darts, because that was another new thing that we had for PopCon this year that KJ and Patrick, her husband, brought in as a new fandom for people to learn about is professional darts. And again, if you've seen Ted Lasso, you know about darts. So I'm gonna go on the Facebook group and be like, hey, did the guy that was dressed as Ted Lasso ever go to the darts booth and, have a moment? But the professional darts, that was cool. They had it set up so they had a couple of dartboards, so that, just anybody could come up and learn, how to throw a dart and how to do scoring and all that fun stuff. But they actually had one of their professional boards set up that keeps score, and they were actually having a legit tournament there at PopCon. So some of these players were playing playing in a tournament that actually was part of their career. So I thought it was really cool. I thought they were just going to stand around and, kind of throw darts all weekend. And I saw the TV screen that had the scoring on it. And I'm like, holy crap, they're actually playing. And they're like, yeah. I was like, oh, that's so cool. Because, some sports, like wrestling, there's some crossover. Just because you're a fan of the MCU doesn't mean you can't necessarily also be into sports. I love Doctor Who and Disney and Marvel and Star Wars and all of that fun stuff. But, if you've heard, any of our random chat, either on Patreon or if it gets left in the show, you also know that Holly and I have become very big fans of Inter Milan, the soccer team. So, we're just as excited to watch an episode of Doctor Who as we are an Inter Milan match. So nerds can love sports, and sports fans can also be nerds. And I think that's part of the reason why KJ was so excited to bring professional darts to PopCon to share it with folks, because you just never know. You may, maybe you've been like, well, I've never really found a sport I'm really into, and maybe you tried it out, and maybe someone this past weekend realized that darts is now they're really good at it, and it's something they want to do on the regular. So you just never know when you may find yourself a huge fan of something. So that was really cool. I didn't go and throw any darts. I've played darts before. I'm not very good at it. But I've done it, so I kind of left it free to the folks that had never, probably never done it before. So there's that. And then, of course, not new, but the podcast awards were Friday night. Again, Brandon taking the reins for these things, organizing with Brad Shoemaker's help. Brad does all the technical stuff on the back end as far as the website, so that for people to enter and all that fun stuff. And then Brandon handles sending out the clips and everything to the judges, and then does the scoring to figure out the winners and that sort of thing. I was not a judge this year because Brandon wanted to change up the judging pool, which I totally understand because we have had some repeats. There were several podcasts that were either a finalist and or won in categories that I recognize from past years that I myself have judged in past years. So to keep things fair and, not necessarily have someone's scoring be colored by previous experience, which I would like to think that I'm impartial, but, I do have some podcasts over doing this. I'm like, oh, that's a really good podcast. I'm going to shout out a couple of them here in a moment. But so I totally get changing up the judging pool, so you get different opinions, some fresh blood. Brandon also changed up some of the categories as well. So this was actually the first year that all the categories ended up being full, which I think is pretty cool, because then that made it, some real competition. So I had no idea who was going to win anything. That is something that Brandon has started doing since last year, is making sure that all the judging and everything is done ahead enough time before PopCon that he can reach out to the winners and let them know, and he can check in with them and see if they're going to be present or not. That way those that are present can get their statue, and if they want to make an acceptance speech then and there, they can. And then those that can't physically be there have an opportunity to either send in audio or video or an email or whatever, again, some sort of acceptance thank you type thing, So all the winners know that they won beforehand, which in this case, because of the circumstances, I think that's totally fine. I think that's totally cool. So in this case, we were able to they were able to give out all the statues to those that said they were going to be there. They were there. And then everybody that won that could not be there did send in something, whether it was an email or audio or in some cases video, saying thank you. And especially if they won in multiple categories, they sent in multiple thank yous for those specific categories. So one of the podcasts that I want to shout out, that won for I think comedy and cover art. Was it cover art? No, he didn't win for cover art. Different one for cover art. He won for something. He won one of the technicals, I think, as well. It's called Stay Buried. And the tagline is "Inside the Mind of an 11-year-old Idiot." And the description the official description is in 2008, which I think is a typo, because I think he's older than it's actually 1980 is what it says in the first first episode description. So, but. So there's a bit of discrepancy there, so I'm not entirely sure. But anyway, the description says in 2008, a monumentally misguided child wrote a 252-page fantasy novel by flagrantly ripping off the likes of redacted until pending lawsuits are settled. Now, over a decade later, that same boy revisits the dusty book to reckon with his cringeworthy past. Each episode features Newton Holt and his co-host reading an otherwise unreadable chapter of Rapture, an odyssey through the mind of an 11-year-old idiot. So, I think within the universe, it's 1980 is what it is. But then he wrote it in our universe in 2008. So, but it's set in the 80s, I think. So anyway, it's this whole thing. He's reading this really bad novel that he wrote, when he was a kid. So, if any of y'all are out there that like, just a bad, I'm a bad writer. Why should I try? Here you go. Here's your incentive to, write, because you just got to start. And then the other one, which won several categories, including I think best overall podcast, is Agent Stoker, which is kind of it's a paranormal thriller noir. It says it's part Raymond Chandler, part Philip K. Dick, and all macabre all at the same time. It's got 2 seasons out now. They're working on season 3. A couple of the guys that work on it and one of the guys that stars in it as Agent Stoker have worked on shows like Altered Carbon. So if you're a fan of those type of shows, this is the same brainchild. But one of the also directors, she doesn't appear as a character, but she's one of the directors of Agent Stoker, is Rachel Talalay, which, as a Doctor Who fan, you know her as someone who directed a number of Peter Capaldi's episodes when he was the Doctor. She actually goes back quite a ways, though, because she worked on, Nightmare on Elm Street. Oh, the Final Nightmare or something? Yeah, Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare. So she goes back quite a bit, as far as working on genre type stuff. But she has directed an episode of Supernatural. She did the new Quantum Leap, which now has unfortunately been canceled, very much like the original Quantum Leap. She did episodes of Supergirl. Doom Patrol, American Gods, The Flash, Legends of Tomorrow. So yeah, she's kind of a directing legend when it comes to genre stuff. So the fact that Rachel Talalay knows that PopCon exists is kind of cool. And Brandon himself was like, "Oh my god, that's Rachel Talalay," when he saw like the name of the people and saw the video, because they sent in a video for every single category they won, and it's Rachel Talalay with a number of the other people involved. And I was like, oh my god, Rachel Talalay knows that we exist, at least as PopCon goes. So that's really cool. So yeah, congratulations to all the podcast award winners. I do not have a list of all of the winners yet, because that has not been posted, at least as far as me recording this. As soon as I get a list, I will try to post that, preferably with links to the shows. But I was busy taking pictures during the award ceremony, so I couldn't be taking pictures and writing stuff down at the same time. But I figure it's going to get posted eventually. But yeah, those were just a couple of the podcasts that I wanted to give a shout out to. But congratulations to everybody. It's really cool to see, how people have taken the medium of podcasting and made it their own, with, whatever subject matter it is they're excited about, and makes them want to do the work to produce a podcast about that thing. Because if you don't have the passion, you're going to get bored really quickly, and, then you're wasting your time when you could be doing something else that you're more passionate about. So, obviously we're a little passionate because we're at 450 something episodes at this point. So I think we found our passion, but not concerned about, entering the, at least this particular podcast, awards. So, we're very fortunate to have been a finalist, in a couple of different categories over the years, but since I moved on to helping with the judging, doesn't feel as right to enter a podcast, especially one that I do all the back end and editing and everything. Obviously Gold Standard has been entered a few times, but I let Nick do that, but Nick also does most of the heavy lifting for that. So if Gold Standard wins something, it really is on Nick. Zan and I are just there to sound pretty, because you can't see us. So anyway, whatever. Podcasting, yay, fun. So there was that. So that was Friday. Saturday was John Barrowman. And I did sat in with a few more panels. I sat in part of one of the group formerly known as Breakfast Anytime, one of their improv workshops. If you know Big Don and Josh and all those guys, they've been at it a little bit longer, from the Established Facts podcast. They've been at it a little longer than us, but not by a whole lot. But Peter Spellows, friend of the show, when he started, when he came to Indy for the first time, to PopCon as a guest, he connected with Big Don and Josh and this wacky group of nerds, and founded a local improv group called Breakfast Anytime. And throughout the years, Peter would go from New York here to Indy to other places, but he was coming from New York to Indy quite a bit. And eventually he moved here to Indy several years ago, so that he could be close and more hands-on with Breakfast Anytime. But if you've listened to our show, unfortunately last November Peter passed away due to cancer, which is a shame, because he was just a wonderful addition to the PopCon family and just the Indianapolis kind of nerd community. So that Friday night of PopCon, they held a special performance in his honor. And with that, they have retired the name Breakfast Anytime in honor of Peter's passing, and have renamed themselves now Second Breakfast Improv. So, still keeping the breakfast theme. It's just an evolution. To continue the work that Peter started teaching improv to folks, whether they want to be a comedian or not. Doing something like an improv workshop is actually really helpful. If you struggle with public speaking, or you're just gonna kind of build up your self-esteem a little. Improv techniques help a lot with that. So I sat in on one of their workshops, which was quite entertaining to watch. Watch people think on their feet, because I think that's the hardest part, is the thinking on your feet and thinking fast. So that was fun. And then throughout the weekend, I bounced around several panels from old friends and new friends of Writer's Row, which is something that I believe last year was the first year for it. It is big booth space that is put together and organized by, among other people, our friend Rob Southgate from Southgate Media Group, and his wife and his daughter, and some of their friends and colleagues, including I'm blanking on her name again. You would think, since I've slept since the end of PopCon, that my brain would be Erica, who is the head of Four Horsemen Publications, which is their publishing company, and Rob is the director of marketing and stuff like that. So they had a booth set up with a number of their authors, including friend of the show, James Wilder, and gave them an opportunity to, sell their books and tell people about, give the pitch on their books. And they have everything from nonfiction to young adults to genre-specific fiction, like supernatural fiction or LGBTQ fiction, that sort of thing. So they cover the gamut. But instead of just having them stand in that booth for 3 days, they also had running panels all 3 days of different topics. Sometimes it was writing specific to writing, like, hey, you want to be a writer? Here's where you get started, that sort of thing. And sometimes they were just fun fan panels. One of the ones I sat and watched was their fandom cage match, where Rob would throw out two fandoms, and then the panelists would have to debate on which one's better: X-Files versus Supernatural, Bob's Burgers versus Family Guy. And it got really heated. It got, it was all fun and games, but it got pretty heated, especially that X-Files versus Supernatural. Woo! I call that one a draw, honestly, for neutrality purposes. So that was a lot of fun, to, catch up with Rob and his family, and meet some new authors, made a few connections. May or may not have some of those authors on the podcast in the future, to talk about, both their work and whatever else, we decide to talk about. They are, Writers Row will be at PopCon Louisville. So if you missed Indy PopCon, or just you happen to miss stopping by, you can visit them again at Writers Row. I don't know which authors will be there specifically. There may be different ones. I don't know. But still, I think it's a cool thing that Rob and Erica are doing with Four Horsemen. And we may or may not actually be talking to Erica at some point in the future too, especially stuff related to Fangirls Get Back. So we had a nice short little chat about the things that she does and the things that we're wanting to do, and we got some overlap there, so we'll see. Who knows what doors may open in the future. That's the fun thing about attending these events and making connections with people. When I attended that first PopCon all the way back to 2014, knowing it's like, I was like, I've never really done something like this before. Because at that point, I'd been to Gen Con and I'd been to the Chicago TARDIS. So I was still very wet behind the ears when it comes to conventions. So I really had no idea what I was in for with that first PopCon. But by then, we'd had the idea for the podcast. We just had not launched yet. But we were getting very close. Hence why Sylvester is our very first bumper. Even though I was like, in the back of my head, I'm like, I want to start this podcast with my friends, and like, oh, Sylvester McCoy, and oh, look, Steve Cardenas has stole my sunglasses. I could not have imagined the opportunities that would eventually open up down the road from that very first PopCon. It's been so cool to look back and see what has happened, both with the evolution of PopCon and with our podcast and the things that have occurred and are still happening and may happen in the future. It's been very, very cool. Even in this case, it was very cool. It was cool to see John Barrowman again. The man's a hoot. And it was a lot of fun to also add to my autograph collection as well, because I already had John's autograph, so I didn't need it again. But to meet Matt Lintz, who played Bruno on Miss Marvel on Disney Plus. We had a nice little chat. I may throw the audio for these next few things in here as I'm talking. I didn't necessarily want to repeat myself. I may or may not have been recording while I talk to some of these people. It's easier to ask forgiveness than permission. No, it's okay. I'm not going to get like dragged or quartered or anything because of this. Because I was like, wasn't asking anything outside of what you would ask in a Q&A, and I wasn't holding up the lines or anything, so it's totally fine. But yeah, Matt and I had a nice little chat. He's a sweet kid. God, that makes me sound old, but considering he's like 20 something and I'm 40 something, that's appropriate, I think. Hi there.
Hey, how's it going?
How you doing? Good. How are you?
I'm doing very good.
Matt Lintz. What's your name?
That's my name.
Hello. How are you? There's that.
Selfie or autograph?
Autograph.
Oh, wow. Here, let's move these
Add
coffees out of the way.
To the collection.
Yeah. Let me make sure I have one that works.
So generally black or silver works.
Yeah.
Just kind of depends on
Oh, no, this one's
where
dead.
and don't be afraid to press hard. You won't hurt it.
The silver's good, but I think the black would probably be the best option.
It's like Batista. He didn't press hard enough. So
I see, yeah.
So don't be afraid to press a little hard. So
It wouldn't take much for Batista to just go.
I know, and that's the thing too. So
Go right here if that's okay.
That's fine with you.
And you want just signature and character name?
Yeah. That works. So what do you think Bruno's been up to?
He's just been studious.
Yeah, because he was
been
on his
very
way to college
He's living the life in California
Yeah,
away from.
Do you think like after
Kamala.
everything that happened in the Marvels, Kamala was on the phone like, dude, you will not guess what just happened to me?
I'm so sure. Yeah, I bet. But also, he gave her some space because he knows that she's, a superhero now. So.
Well, I know. You're the first person to utter the word mutant.
I know.
In the MCU, the first person to use that word.
Yeah.
So from here on out, like, he said it first.
Yeah.
Mutants.
Yeah. I'm hoping, we get to delve into that a little bit more, but I can't really say much about it. But,
Yeah. I know. You are not the first person I've talked to from a major franchise like that. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm sure Disney's got like snipers.
Oh,
If you start saying too much, it's going to be a red dot.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to appear on your forehead.
Yeah.
He's on the lookout.
Yeah.
Get some cool people on here.
Yeah. Slowly but surely. So I'm saying I've got everybody from Avenger level all the way
Who's
to...
Who's the blue one?
that would be Rooker.
Oh, yeah, Rooker
That was
is
last year.
Rooker's crazy.
He was here last year, and Rooker was all like, I was like, sign wherever you want, It's like, you've got some other Guardians on here, and he's like, fuck them all. I'm going to write as big as I want.
That's how
That's what he did.
Yeah.
So, everyone's like, what's that big one? That would be Michael Rooker.
Yeah.
Everyone else, for the most part, has been like,
Normal size.
normal
got
size
Kingpin?
for the most part, so...
Kingpin. You got? Is that Daredevil?
Yep.
No way. Wow.
Yep, I got Daredevil, Kingpin, and somewhere I had to start writing them on the back just to try to remember who they all are. Yeah, Rosario Dawson is right there. So, so I'm starting to get some of the
Who's over here?
Defenders. So this is Chris. What the crap is his like? Chris Sullivan, Taserface.
Oh, I gotcha.
Yeah. Yep. And then that's Sean Gunn.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So he was here last year.
Yeah.
So and then
That's
I got
awesome.
Evangeline Lilly last year. So
Super cool.
yeah.
Very cool.
So but yeah.
Well, keep collecting. Yeah, that's really
Yep.
cool, man.
I just have to. Eventually,
yeah.
it was like I'm gonna
Chris
block.
Evans.
Well, no, actually, for Clark Gregg.
Oh wow, yeah. Nice.
He's my white whale autograph as Clark Gregg. So it's like, right here, Captain America's face. I'm going to block that off so nobody writes on it. This here's this space reserved for Coulson. So, although hopefully I'm seeing Ming-Na Wen later this year, so she'll get like the space below it.
Yeah. Wow.
Coulson's second hand goes right there.
Incredible.
Yeah. Oh, I started a line. Woohoo! I'm a trendsetter. Awesome. Well, hopefully you'll see you on the Disney Plus.
Well, I'm hoping.
Sometime
Yeah.
in the future.
Of course. Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
Maybe they need to put you head to head with Ned.
Oh, I know. That's
and
what I'm gonna say.
See who's got the cooler tech friend,
Oh
best friend.
yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Kamala and Peter can go off and do something. You and Ned can get down and be all nerdy on the computer. And
Exactly.
Be like,
Yeah.
we got this.
Yep.
Anything technology related, we got this. Because
Yeah,
y'all
yeah.
are the next generation.
We are.
You
Yeah.
are. So nice to meet you,
Hey, it
man.
was so nice to meet you.
you
Yeah.
too. Have a good one. So yeah, he's cool. Xavier, and I don't want to butcher his last name, so I'm not going to try to pronounce it. Xavier, who was Tinker during the we like to call the space trucker storyline from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. The first season. That was the season after Henry had been to PopCon, because when I was talking to Henry, and that had occurred, and then I met Henry, and I said something to Henry about I thought it was awesome that they were able to bring Clark Gregg back after they had technically killed Coulson in the MCU again. Human Coulson died again in the MCU and was staying dead. But because of the space trucker whole thing and having Sarge being played by Clark Gregg, they were able to bring Clark Gregg back. So that way Clark Gregg was able to continue being on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. But Tinker is one of Sarge's cronies from the space semi-truck. So that was cool. Him, I kept missing. I'd walk by his booth and he wasn't there, which, is totally fine. You can't expect the celebrities to stay chained to their booths.
they're allowed to, go to the bathroom, go get something to eat, that sort of thing. So I'm not going to begrudge, somebody walking away, temporarily for something like that. But he was nice to talk to, so I got his autograph as well on my Marvel print thing, which it's getting so full that I took some washi tape, which crafters know washi tape is this usually colorful kind of like painter's tape, but not quite as sticky, but it still peels off fairly easily. And I've taken some washi tape and marked off the area where Clark Gregg's signature eventually is going to be, hopefully one of these days, knock on wood. Because the thing is getting so full with signatures, I was like, Clark Gregg's signature is gonna go here. I gotta make sure no one else writes on top of it. Even when I hopefully see Ming Na Wen later this year, she can write next to it, below it, but not where Clark's signature is gonna go. Everybody, it's funny because it's right over Captain America's face and everything, so I blocked that off for Chris Evans. I'm like, no, that's for Clark Gregg. So sorry, Chris Evans. If I ever meet Chris Evans, he's going to have to fit his signature next to Clark Gregg's. So yeah, I got those Marvel autographs. And then the Sunday morning, I got my photo with Elijah Wood and Andy Serkis, which was a lot of fun. Because I actually did that before I went and got either of their autographs, so it was my first time seeing either of them is in the photo op, which me and the Duff Door. I took the Duff Door with me because I could not make up my mind what we could potentially do for a pose, and I was like, I'm just gonna take the Duff Door, tried and true. Me and the bear, and a hobbit, and depending on your fandom, Smeagol, Ulysses Claw, Caesar, Planet of the Apes, take a break, Snoke. Take your fandom. Pick your fandom. So then once I was done the photo off, I immediately got in line for Andy Serkis, because I made the announcement he was going to have to leave at 2 that day. That's the thing with Sundays, is stuff can be in flux because people's flights can get changed, and celebrities have no control over that. That's all the airlines, unfortunately. So things, Sundays can be kind of chill, but at the same time, if you're really wanting to meet a celebrity, you need to be paying attention to what's going on, because schedules can change in a moment sometimes. But thankfully, Andy was very good about, talking while signing at the same time. So you could have a nice little chat with him, which I did. For reference.
Title winners.
Huh?
Title winners. They just won the league.
Yes. They did. Actually, they won it Monday, almost a week ago, but yes. Should probably unfurl, that way it's not...
That's right.
Good to meet you. My high school theater teacher will be very jealous I got to meet you.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Ulysses Claw. A few times you actually get to see him for him. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's a map.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hello. Hi. Good. How are you?
Good. So, where do you want me? Mordor.
Sure. Whatever you think is appropriate. So.
I feel at home here.
Yeah. So,
non-Lord of the Rings question. Can you still do the Thriller dance from 13 going on 30?
Yeah, but don't get me to do it right now.
I'm getting ready to review that on my podcast,
Oh,
so
cool.
now I can be like, yes, he said he can do it. He just won't right now, this very moment. Awesome. Thank you very much. And he was super nice. When I went to do my photo, while it's very much processing cattle, as far as like come in, pose, smile, flash, go. Depending on the celebrity, they can still make it a fun experience. You know, when I did my photo with John Barrowman, John like was kind of was like, okay, we're gonna pose like this, and I'm like, sweet. So when I went in for Elijah and Andy, they both shook my hand, like, hi, how you doing? I'm like, great, let's pose with the bear. So, when I got my autograph, I had my map of Middle Earth, which I've started collecting autographs on. My first and only one up until that point was Bernard Hill, who played Theoden, King of Rohan, that I collected at Cincinnati last year. I wasn't the only one with one of those maps collecting signatures either. There was a gal further ahead in line of me that had one as well. Andy signed for me, that was that. And then so I went and I was concerned about getting in line for Elijah, that I would not get through before his panel at 1. But the other people in line for Andy, because we were all just kind of chatting with each other while we were waiting, said that his line moves fairly quickly. So they said, if you go as soon as you're done here with Andy, you should be fine. So I was like, cool. So that's what I did. I went on the line for Elijah, and again, he's very good about talking while signing at the same time, multitasking, fabulous. So I met Elijah, and I asked him some questions about visiting New Zealand.
I don't know. On the back of this?
Yeah, just so I can copy it.
I'm not very good at drawing.
There's a first for everything.
Like, I met Sean like 5 years ago, I think, at the city. And I'm like, was trying to meet so I
Look at you go. I don't know. Let's leave it at that. Stop on the head. Did you want me to sign this as well?
Yes, please. Sorry.
Okay.
And I'm asking popcorn for you.
Let that dry because this is a little bit wetter.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Take care.
It's vaguely ring ships. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Good. Okay, question. I've never been to New Zealand, and I really, 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 really want to go. And obviously you've been.
Yes.
And spent a few days there.
Yes.
When I go,
Yeah.
what is something quintessentially New Zealandy that I either have to do, see, or eat?
I mean, Jesus. You should go to the Milford Sound.
Okay.
It's really stunning.
Milford Sound. Okay.
But there's so much,
Yes.
There's so much that you kind of have to see.
Every time I watch.
I'd say a big thing for us as like a place that we used to go all the time.
Yeah.
On Cuba Street, there's a place called Fidel's.
Fidel's.
Go there for breakfast or
Okay.
brunch. It's great.
Fantastic.
I think it's still around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
It's like I want to move that up my list.
Oh, it's amazing.
Right there.
It's so special.
Fantastic. Thank you. Because I really, 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 really want to visit New Zealand, and every time I watch Lord of the Rings, it just makes me want to leave, like,
grab my passport, run out the door, and just get the next flight to New Zealand. Because, you know, if you just took, like, the scenery shots and took out anything plot, you know, of just Lord of the Rings, it could be a travel ad for New Zealand, because the country is just so beautiful. And unlike Australia, not everything there is trying to kill you. So, you know, all of you that want to visit Australia, have fun. I'm going to be over with the Kiwis. Thank you. So Elijah was super nice. He looks and sounds exactly the same as he does in Lord of the Rings. The man does not age. It's wild. But he's super nice. And then I grabbed Sala Baker, who was the physical representation of Sauron, among other things, in Lord of the Rings. Getting those fingers cut off by Isildur. So I got his autograph as well. So that's cool. So I've got Theoden, the Ring Bearer, Frodo, Gollum, and Sauron now as Lord of the Rings autographs. So that's pretty cool. So that'll be fun to add those, and I get more opportunities possibly to collect some more, because there may be a certain son of the Steward of Gondor, not the one that dies all the time, but the other one that is his father. Father doesn't like him very much. So sorry, Faramir. Is right now scheduled to be at Cincinnati, along with Ming Na Wen. So hopefully, knock on wood, things stay the way they are. So I can collect maybe Faramir's autograph in the future. So we shall see. So to wrap things up, I will tell you how my Indy PopCon this year ended with a bang-ish, which is appropriate considering it kind of started with a bang, because I got to the convention center Friday, and parked and was walking to the entrance, the one that's across the street from Victory Field, if you're familiar with the area, because that was the side of the convention center PopCon was using. And as I'm going up these stairs that I have taken these stairs hundreds of times throughout the years of going to various things at the convention center, not just PopCon, Gen Con, you name it. I use these stairs and that entrance a lot. Going up the stairs, I'm even looking down as I'm going up the stairs and still manage to trip and fall up the stairs. Thankfully, I did not really hurt myself. I scraped a little on my hand, but it wasn't anything terrible. And as there was a small group of people that were out there near the stairs having a smoke, and as the one gal pointed out, "Hey, you didn't spill your drink," so the fact that she zoned in on that, and not the fact that I just almost face planted in front of some strangers in front of the convention center, that's a win for everybody involved. Because I was like, yeah, I didn't spill any of my drink. So yay. You don't want to face plate and lose all of your Starbucks, because Starbucks is expensive, man. So I start PopCon with almost face planting on some concrete stairs. In my defense, these stairs, and I'm sure this is a weather drainage reason for this particular architecture, because when it rains here in the Midwest, sometimes it can rain, so you need good drainage. I learned that the hard way several weeks ago when it rained, and my apartment parking lot, it was almost up to my knees because the sewer drains could not drain fast enough with how hard it was raining. So these stairs, again, concrete, they jut out like stairs do, but instead of going like straight down at a 90-degree angle, or maybe a slightly less than 90-degree angle, these like jut out and kind of curve around and then go like at a 45-degree angle. Almost, I'm probably exaggerating some, but still, they jut back in and go down at a steep angle. So there's like this lip. So when you're going up the stairs, you got to be careful you don't get caught on that lip, because the stair juts out further than it appears to. And that's what happened, is I got caught on the lip and down I went. So for future reference, anyone taking those stairs, be careful. Last year I didn't have that problem because I had to go on a different door so I could take the elevator, because I had my booth stuff. So that's how I started PopCon. And so ending PopCon on Sunday, photo with Andy Elijah, collecting autographs, that sort of thing. I'm back at the live podcasting stage, and kind of hanging out, and there's still several hours left, but at this point, like, my feet are tired. I was wearing my Birkenstocks that day because I knew after so many days my feet were going to swell, so I put on shoes that gave them the room to swell instead of shoving them in tennis shoes. That was nice because then I could sit down at the podcasting stage and in one of the seats, the audience seats, and kick off my shoes, and I could put my feet on the cold concrete. Oh, that felt so good. But anyway, so I'm just chilling. And I was like, you know what? We still got a few hours to go. I'm going to go to the bathroom, and then I should be good for the rest of the day. So I get up and go to the bathroom, which in the vendor hall, literally on the opposite side of where the live podcasting stage is the bathroom. So I go all the way to the other side, go to the bathroom, do what nature intends, the female. So I got to sit down. So I did the sitting down bit. And then I stand up to do the bit, the standing up part of things. And as I'm finishing that, I hear this crunchy metallic sound. And I was like, what was that? And I looked down and I realized that the zipper on my pants has busted. The pulley tab is still attached to one side of teeth, but it's completely let loose of the other side of teeth. So there's no zipping the zipper back up, and there's no sliding those teeth easily back into the pulley bit of the zipper. So I'm like, okay, well, that's unfortunate. So I finish up, pull up my pants, button the fly, because thankfully the button's still attached, close my, fasten my belt, and yeah, I was wearing corduroy. I call them my Hobbit pants because they're like this forest green, very Shire-ish green, and they're kind of cropped. So I call them my Hobbit pants. I thought it was appropriate, considering who I met that day. However, corduroy is a bit stiff in the fit when it comes to fabrics, and therefore it did not just want to lay. Like, the fly just did not want to lay and maybe make the appearance that my fly is closed. No, barn door wide open. Thankfully, the shirt I'm wearing is long enough that you're not seeing like my underwear. I had my Inter Milan jersey on, so it's like green and then, black and blue in there in the barn door, which is wide open. So I'm like, okay, well, how can I make this less embarrassing, preferably? And thankfully, right next to the podcasting stage was in the middle of a professional darts on one side and Rubber City cosplay on the other sandwich. So I scuttle back to Rubber City Cosplay next to the podcasting stage. Only one of the guys is there because all the rest of them had gone to do the kids cosplay contest, which thankfully I caught the parade because they did a nice little parade from there through the vendor hall to the room where they were going to have the cosplay contest. So I at least caught that bit. But one of the guys had stayed behind, and I was like, I know I'm not in cosplay, but I have a wardrobe malfunction. And I was just like, my zipper broke. So he's like, oh, okay, well, and he hands me a box of safety pins, and he's like, feel free to go, in the curtained off area of our booth for some privacy. And I'm like, sweet. So I go back there, and I am trying my damnedest to MacGyver something that reasonably has the barn door not wide open. I get like 3/4 of the way there, and I'm like, my fingers will get in the way, or the fabric is fighting me, because again, it's corduroy, so it's kind of stiff. It just does not want to cooperate. And I was like, okay, I can either try to find another set of hands, or I'm going to have to take my pants off to try and do this. And I was not about to take my pants off in someone else's booth when any of them could just show up at any point. Because, like, they don't know me. I don't really know them. Like, they've been to I've seen them at other events, so it's like I know them in passing, but I don't necessarily know any of them by name. And they don't know me, so I didn't want any of them coming back. So I didn't know when they were going to be coming back and have some crazy lady in an Italian soccer jersey with no pants on in their booth. So I was like, okay, I'm going to need another set of hands. And I was like, I should probably get a set of female hands. Not because it's like, not that I'm being sexist or anything, but I thought maybe it'd be slightly less embarrassing and awkward if it was woman helping out woman. Because, that happens. We help each other out. In the bathroom with stuff sometimes, share, you back got a tampon? Here you go. Been in that situation on both sides. So I was like, I'm going to see if I can find a woman. Thankfully, on the other side of Rubber City Cosplay is the Circle City Ghostbusters, which there were plenty of them there. They were fully staffed that day. And thankfully, I know some of the Circle City Ghostbusters. So there are a few of the gals. They were not within hearing distance of me, but Jacob Bartlett was. So I'm like, Jacob Bartlett, can I borrow one of your women? He just kind of looks at me like, what? I was like, I got a wardrobe malfunction and I need a lady. He's like, okay. So he goes over and he's like, is one of you willing to go help her out with a wardrobe issue? And this lovely blonde lady jumps and she's like, I can do it. So she comes in back in here and she probably spends like the next 10 minutes between the two of us pulling fabric and bending stuff and messing with the zipper bits and the pulley and all of the stuff, trying to use these tiny, swear they're the world's tiniest safety pins to, again, MacGyver some sort of something that keeps the barn door closed. So it's not like, ooh, look, fly's open. And eventually we get something that, any other situation I could be like, it's a little steampunk, it's a little Fallout, we're just trying to make do with what we got. That was like, that's, there's only a few hours left. We're just going to make this work. And she's like, great, glad I could help. She gets ready, she's walking back to the Circle City Ghostbusters booth. And I'm like, I'm Rachel, by the way. And she's like, I'm Chris. Because, we'd just spent the 10 minutes with her and me playing with these pants, this fly, and we hadn't even bothered introducing each other. So I give the box of safety pins back to the guy from Rubber City Cosplay, and I was like, we're just gonna live with this, and hopefully it holds until I can go home, or at least get back to the car. But then I proceeded to spend the rest of the afternoon standing, because I did not trust sitting would not automatically make like every safety pin just pop open. And yeah, I tried to like hold my hands like kind of in front of that area, kind of like if you've ever seen like the royals out and about, when they're not like shaking hands with somebody, they tend to keep their hands kind of clasped and kind of in front of that, you know, lower stomach, upper body area. You know, the guys just kind of hold them there. The women usually have like a small handbag, and you're usually holding it there, because that's just kind of royal protocol, because it keeps their hands where you can see them, so that one, they can't be accused of like making like a rude gesture. It also keeps it from people grabbing their hands, because you're not supposed to grab the royals by any body part, but especially, you know, like don't grab their hand and like shake it, that sort of thing. So that just it's just a formal thing that that's how they conduct themselves when out in public. So I was doing a lot of that, but you know, a few times I did move my hands because I either went to a booth and was looking at stuff, and at one point one of the ladies in one of the booths I stopped at, she was like, "Your fly's open." I was like, "Yeah, no, it's not open, it's broken, but thanks." She's like, "Oh." I was like, "Yeah, it's okay." So yeah, so eventually, you know, PopCon ended. I said my goodbyes to Brandon and a bunch of other, you know, folks, and on my way out, you know, I said bye to Rob Southgate and all those folks, and eventually made my way back to the car. In the process, I lost, well, I didn't lose it, but one safety pin came loose before I'd even left the convention center. A couple more had let loose by the time I got to the car. So once I was in the car, I just went ahead and took them out, because I was like, I'm not stopping anywhere on the way home, and I don't want any of these to like pop free and start stabbing me while I'm trying to drive the car. So unless somebody happens to be out in the parking lot at my apartment complex, nobody's going to see it. So that's what I did. Is I drove home, and Chauncey was there to greet me with adult beverage and some ice packs for my feet, because by the time I got home, both of my feet were swollen, and I changed pants, and those pants are now in the to be repaired pile. So either repaired or replaced the zipper. So I did find a potential repair that requires a few tools that I, one, did not have available to me while at PopCon, and two, again, would have required me to take said pants off, which I was not going to do at PopCon. So I'm going to attempt the fix with the tools first. If that does it, great. If not, then the zipper's just going to have to be ripped out and replaced with a new and hopefully stronger zipper. So yeah, that was my bookend of PopCon, was falling upstairs and busting open the barn door of my Hobbit pants, with some podcasting and celebrity encounters mixed in, you know, with all that fun stuff. Yeah, a little bit of shopping. I didn't buy a whole lot. I did buy some stuff from the Chocolate Moonshine Company because they were there. They had my beloved coated, bourbon coated blueberries, which was so good. They did not have them last time I saw them. So when I saw that they had them this time, I'm like, I need some blueberries, please. And then I wasn't going to get any fudge, but then they had a few new flavors, and one of them was peanut butter and jelly. It was grape jelly. So I got some fudge too, and they were actually very generous with the slice of fudge that they gave me. So yeah, I've been eating that slowly but surely. Trying to make it last as much as I can.
because their stuff is just so good. You know, the fudge is pretty darn good. Their truffles, again, they're cool. But oh my goodness, these blueberries, so good, so good. And I'm usually a huge fan of blueberries, but these are just they're so good. So hashtag not a sponsor yet. Just saying, check your inbox, chocolate moonshine people. You may or may not have mail from the Fiveish Fangirls. And then I did buy one thing from an artist in Artist Alley. While I did wander a bit and see some pretty cool stuff that if I'd had the money would have bought it. There's one vendor that had some really cool 3D printed stuffs, including 3D printed corgis and then a 3D printed doghouse to go with. So cute. And you know, of course, stickers, art, all the things that I love to buy. But I, again, watching my pennies. So I did buy a keychain from one vendor, which, I'm not going to tell you exactly what it says because it's got a bad word on it. But, I will say, you know, if you go to one of these things and, you know, you find yourself in a situation similar to me where you got to kind of watch how you spend your money, and you find a vendor that you really like their stuff, but you're like, you know, I can only spend like $5-10. You know, don't feel bad that you can't like drop a bunch of cash on a vendor that you find amazing, because actually it's the little stuff, the $5-10 stuff, that actually helps them pay their bills, because that is the stuff that adds up really quickly. That is going to allow them to hopefully come out ahead at the end of events. Because, you know, as nice as I'm sure it would be for some of these artists to sell, you know, like their $500 one-of-a-kind, hand-drawn, you know, piece of art or whatever, you can only, you know, if it's one-of-a-kind, you can only sell it once. You're only going to make that $500 once. And if you don't sell anything else, I can tell you from personal experience at some of these events, you probably spent close to that just on the booth. So it's actually the little things, you know, the $5 keychains, the $10, you know, postcard size prints, are actually what help pay the bills for a lot of these vendors. So if you're on a budget, don't feel bad that you're like, I can only buy a keychain, or only buy a button, because that is actually what really helps them pay the bills. So yeah, I was like, I'm gonna buy this keychain that has a naughty word on it, and I'm actually using it as a zipper pull, because I don't necessarily need another keychain. I've got lots of keychains. I got enough keychains on my keys as it is, but I found that keychains are really great for adding kind of an extension to zippers. So if you got like a bag, I've got several bags that are like backpack style, and you know, the little zipper pull thing, you know, just like the one that was on my pants that broke. You know, if you're in a hurry or whatever, maybe you've got like dexterity problems, that little zipper pull might be a little difficult to grab a hold of. Put a keychain on there, you got something nice and bigger and maybe more substantial to grab a hold of. Plus it, you know, gives a little personalization to what could be an otherwise kind of boring like backpack or bag. So yeah. Because if you're like, I don't need another keychain, I'm like, don't think about keychains for just keys. They can be used in lots of places. So yeah, that was my PopCon this year. It was memorable, you know. I mean, seeing John Barrowman and, you know, Elijah and Andy and all that was a lot of fun. Seeing some friends. always a lot of fun, getting to see and experience some things that I had not done before, like watching the wrestling and the beer competition was really cool. I just kind of wish that it had not ended with me busting the zipper on my pants, but it at least makes for a memorable yarn to tell you all. And thanks to Rubber City Cosplay for the safety pins, and Chris over at Circle City Ghostbusters for literally lending a couple of hands. It's PopCon. I love PopCon. I'm looking forward to going to Louisville at the end of August this year. Of course, got a little bit of time between now and then. I do have InCon Junction and Gen Con between now and then. But still, I think Louisville will be fun, especially with the change of venue, being actually downtown Louisville, and having being geographically close to a lot of things, restaurants, shopping, that sort of thing. Hopefully will draw a bit more of a crowd in. That is also a very nice venue. If you remember, I went to, I think it was the one and only GalaxyCon in Louisville in 2019 on Doctor Who Day, November 23rd, 2019, where I met Christopher Eccleston and Dave Bautista. And, I only spent the one day there, but the Louisville Convention Center, it is really, really nice. So at the very least, I'm looking forward to spending, 3 days there, because it's a really nice venue. While as I'm recording this, they have not made any announcements via like the web page, the website, or any other social media, but they did have some publicity postcards, accoutrement that they were passing out at PopCon with some of the guest announcements for Louisville. And the guests confirmed so far for Louisville are Maylee Flanagan, who is a voice actress. Among other things, she does Natoro. Nolan North, who his name you might recognize just because it gets thrown around a lot, because he does a lot of voice acting, including Uncharted, the Uncharted series, the video game, not the movie with Tom Holland. And Anson Mount from Star Trek and the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because he is our Black Bolt from the Inhumans television series and Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness, among other things. So I've met Anson Mount at Lexington, I think. Is that right? Last year. I'm pretty sure it was Lexington. So it was the same show that I met Steve from Blue's Clues and Sam Raimi, and I saw Sylvester again. I saw Steve Cardenas again. So they start to blend together after a while. But yeah, Anson Mount, that should be fun. Maybe, hopefully that means maybe some other Star Trek folks. I'd love for them to get Doug Jones, especially considering he's a fellow Hoosier. Granted, it'll be in Kentucky, but still. Convention is owned and operated by fellow Hoosiers, so maybe we'll get Doug Jones. Maybe that'd be awesome. So we'll see. And then PopCon, Indy PopCon is on the books already, officially on the books for next year. It's gonna be the last weekend of June 27th, 20th, and 29th, 2025, which I know is during Pride, but it is at the end of Pride Month, and by then, the big stuff will be done and over with, because like the parade and the big Pride Festival, which is literally down the street, down at Military Park, is in the middle of June, unlike in years past where the big Pride event and PopCon have been the same weekend. They will not overlap next year. But it'll be warm. A lot warmer than it was this year. So yeah, put those on your calendar. I will have links to the PopCon website, so you can check that stuff out. Get more information on tickets and that sort of thing.
And yeah, hopefully, barring any technical issues, I will say user error generated technical issues. It's all on me. I will totally cop to that. That the issue was mine and mine alone. Hopefully it will not happen again, at least anytime soon. It's something that potentially could happen again, but something I can watch out for. So hopefully I don't do again. Knock on wood. Hopefully we'll be back to our regular shenanigans this coming week with all sorts of fun stuff. So yeah, hopefully you all enjoyed this little extra squee, my recap of Indy PopCon 2024, and I will catch you all PopCon wise in Louisville. Bye bye.
Thank you, our Fiveish fam, for joining us on this week's geeky journey. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. Stay connected with us on our website, thefivishfangirls.com, and follow us on most social media with @FivishFangirls. Plus, check out our nonprofit, Fangirls Give Back, to see how we're making a positive impact in our community. Until next time, stay nerdy and let the squee continue.